You're watching The Wave. I'm Frank Kanshi. With a population of roughly 700 million, Southeast Asia is projected to become the world's fourth largest economy. Neighboring countries are keen to forge closer collaboration with the region. Australia is one such country with an ambitious plan to boost two-way trade and investment with Southeast Asia. Joining me now is Australia's Special Envoy for Southeast Asia, Nicholas Moore, and of course the Ambassador of Australia to Thailand, Angela MacDonald. Great to have you on the show, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time. So, of course, in your report, invested Australia's Southeast Asia economic strategy by 2040. What makes Southeast Asia so vitally important for Australia in trade and in business, particularly geographically, economically, and maybe geopolitically too?
Well, that's absolutely right, Frank. Everything you say is so true, that ASEAN is Australia's neighbourhood. Most important thing for anybody is your neighbours, and the prosperity and the security of our neighbourhood is most important to Australia's future. So Australia, we think, has a lot to offer the ASEAN countries. We have a very competitive corporate sector. We have a lot of pension industry, a lot of funds under management. So we think we have a lot to offer. We think we are already a very good partner for the region. We've been a very good partner for ASEAN since it was established, and before that, of course, all the countries in the region. So we think we have a good relationship today, and we think we can have an even better relationship in the future. And that matters for us a lot.
Yes, and you talk about many important points in this report too. But before we get in this specifically, I would like to understand, of course, in Southeast Asia, we have very powerful neighboring economies too, like China, like Japan. So how could Australia find its stance to further forge this collaboration in this region, given that we have these neighbors here?
Well, I think the important thing is that we are already substantial trading partners. So the Southeast Asian countries are our second largest trading partner. Our largest trading partner is China, but Southeast Asia collectively is our second largest trading partner. But our government is ambitious that our trading relationship can be even greater, and not only our trading relationship, but our investment relationship between the region and Australia. So we would like to see the level of investment that Australia has in the region to reflect the importance the region has to Australia.
So how about the specific strategy can Australia employ to increase influence in the Southeast Asia? Of course, we talk about the expertise from Australia too.
Yeah. So we put the recommendations in 4 different categories, and the government has responded. So we made 75 different recommendations in terms of what Australia can do between now and 2040 to improve the closeness of our relationship. And the government has adopted more than half those recommendations already, which is a very positive sign and shows the importance the government is placing in this relationship. So answering the question specifically, we had 4 different categories of recommendation, one of which was raising awareness. And today we're in Bangkok with a delegation of Australian businesses. We have almost a dozen Australian businesses here with us, and pleasingly it's the 3rd delegation that's been through Bangkok in the last 2 months. So that's terrific. So one of the things we want to do in terms of increasing awareness is to bring Australian business leaders regularly to Thailand and the other countries of the region. As well as that, we recommended the appointment of a business champion, someone from the private sector who could help Australian businesses and Thai businesses get a better understanding. So here in Thailand we have Peter Fox, who is a leader of a very substantial business in Australia and here in Thailand. Well, he spends a lot of his time here. So he's a great ambassador for Australia in Thailand, a great actually ambassador for Thailand in Australia. So a very good central point. So growing that awareness between our 2 countries we think is important from the business viewpoint. And remember, our trading position is strong already. So at the moment Thailand exports about $20 billion worth of goods to Australia every year, and Australia exports about $20 $10 billion of goods to Thailand every year. So it's very substantial. And from an investment viewpoint, Thailand has about $10 billion worth of investments in Australia, and Australia about $5 billion worth of investments in Thailand. Now, we're ambitious, of course, so I'd like to see all those numbers increase. So number one is raising awareness in terms of what the opportunities are, delegations, business champions. Secondly, it's about removing blockages. Now, importantly, Australia and Thailand have had a free trade agreement now for almost 20 years. Now, as a result of that free trade agreement, we saw exports from Thailand grow to Australia 3 times over that period. So I think, Ambassador, come 1 January, I think all the limitations, all the tariffs between Australia and Thailand have fallen away, and so we think that will continue to grow. So I think as 2 countries, we're a great example of what free trade can do from a complementary nature. So in terms of our economy, when you're in Australia today, if you're looking at a commercial vehicle, if you're looking at a sedan, most likely it's come from Thailand. That's where we get our cars from, our Toyotas and other things. So very good trading relationship. So removing blockages, a lot of work is being done already by the Thai and the Australian government to put in place agreements that allow free trade to take place. The third thing we talked about in our report was building capabilities. That's the capabilities of the Australian economy and the Thai economy to deal with the challenges that we have in the future. We know energy transition is an issue for Australia and Thailand. We need together to build the skills to deal with energy transition. In terms of the digital economy, it's a priority for the Thai government and the Thai people, as it is for the Australian people. And so building those skills is very important. So one of the delegations we had, I think you met with them, we had about 20 technology companies from Australia in Thailand talking about what they have to offer. So how do we build the capability so between our 2 countries we can deal with them? Agriculture. Today we have in Thailand with us Sunrise, which is a famous Australian company. It exports rice from Australia, it imports rice from Thailand, from Vietnam. Does a lot on the actual varieties of the rice, getting them ready for the different environments we'll see in the future. So agriculture is an area of focus that we have between our 2 countries. We have a strong agricultural base. Thailand's got a very strong agricultural base, but how do we include technology there to actually improve that further? Infrastructure. Australia has a lot of infrastructure companies that like developing infrastructure and investing in it. Thailand, of course, the urbanisation is increasing, the growth of the economy is increasing, and Australia wants to be part of it. And finally, and perhaps most significantly, there's this issue of actually the Australian government using its balance sheet, using its financial heft to help two-way investment between Australia and Thailand. And remember, everything we're talking about is two-way. This is not just increasing Australian exports to Thailand. We're trying to increase Thai exports to Australia. It's already $20 billion a year. We would like to see it at $30 billion. So we're actually the Australian government is investing in programs in Australia to increase the knowledge and therefore the exports from Thai goods into Australia. We see that as being very important. But as well as that, from an investment viewpoint, the government has allocated $2 billion in terms of a fund to support Australian investment, to catalyse, to increase the amount of investment Australians are making in Thailand. As well as that, the government has put on the ground more than 30 people in the region, individuals working for the government, whose job it is to facilitate investment and trade between Australia and the region. So a lot of investment and lots of other things as well the government's working on, together with its long-standing, in many countries of the region, development focus and what have you. So the government has commissioned the report.
Yep.
We've got 75 recommendations. The government's responded to more than half of them already, very enthusiastically, and the government is not just seeing this as a moment in time, but a long-term strategy of continuing the existing engagement, which is very high, to increase it even higher.
One
Yes,
of the
please.
what's striking is that the language in this report and that the Australian government is using about the need to invest in the region actually aligns very nicely with the language that the Thai government is using, both under former Prime Minister Sethar and under Prime Minister Paetongtarn, about really being open for business, looking at the ease of doing business, really looking at attracting investment into Thailand, and we want to be part of that story. So the sorts of language that the Australian government and Thai government is using acknowledges that two-way investment, two-way trade increases the prosperity of both of our peoples, and that really in turn delivers the sort of region that we both want to live in, Thailand and Australia, a region that's prosperous, stable and secure. And obviously business integration goes a long way to helping us to that goal.
Yeah, and it's what both of you said, it's not just one-way trade, it's two-way trade.
Absolutely
and
right.
benefits there for Australia and Thailand. But before we get into specifically to Thailand's topics, I would like to talk about Southeast Asia too, because of course Thailand is the third largest trading partner in Southeast Asia with Australia, just after Singapore and Malaysia. So how can Australia, the expertise, elevate Thailand to another level within this concept, within this two-way trade, no matter it's the expert in agriculture, in technology, in innovation? How can Australia help or just elevate Thailand to another level?
Well, I think the first one is just a question of awareness, and this is what we're doing today.
Yep.
That if we can make Australian companies think about Thailand immediately, because remember where Australia has been in the last 20 years probably is when they thought about going overseas, they would go to the US. A lot of Australian companies went to the US. They went to Europe. They'd go to Northern Asia. You'd go to, sort of Korea or Japan or China. That's all Taiwan. That's where a lot of the investment happened. And what we're trying to do is change the habit or bring back the knowledge for Australian business about Southeast Asia. Australians were very early investors in Southeast Asia, but the rest of the world, the growth in the rest of the world took off. But as you said, Frank, in your introduction, the growth in terms of what's happening in the world today is very much in this part of the world. And so what we're saying to Australian businesses is, yes, you might have seen good growth elsewhere in the world, but you are seeing it right now in Southeast Asia, and that's where you need to look. So in terms of how we deal with it is actually increasing that awareness of what the opportunities are, people to people. Already, as you probably know, there is already a very substantial diaspora of Thais in Australia. So we have 80,000 to 100,000 Thai people living in Australia permanently. So we have a very good consciousness of Thailand in Australia, a very good embedded knowledge. Our universities, of course, are delivering education for about 40,000 Thai students. We need to increase that, we need to deepen that, and we need to broaden it. So there's a great knowledge between our two countries in terms of what the people are doing, what the opportunities are, what the businesses are, just getting businesses to know each other. And particularly when you look at the Thai business groups, they're so broad. They have so many different strengths. It's a lot of knowledge to impart.
What is your strategy in Southeast Asia? Because sometimes the complexity in Southeast Asia really matters, because different countries have different cultures, different rules there. Sure. So what's the strategy to head into different markets? Of course, sometimes you have the strategy in Thailand. It doesn't, it's not applicable to Vietnamese market.
Absolutely right.
So what's the strategy?
Yeah, so my background is in business.
Yes.
So I come from a business background. I was the chief executive of a company called Macquarie Group, and we've got operations here in Thailand, across the region, indeed across the world. We learned the most important thing is to look at the underlying market and find out what you think it needs that you have to offer. So even though you might be providing this product in the United States or in Europe, it doesn't necessarily mean it applies to the local market. So that's why this building awareness of what's needed in the local market. So when we met with Thai government officials today, as we have in previous meetings we always start with what would you like? What are the sectors of the economy that you're focusing on today, and how can we actually work with those? So obviously things like agriculture we talked about, digital we talked about, energy transition we talked about, vocational training and skills we've talked about. So those are the areas. So the question is, okay, well that's what the local economy, the local country wants. Who do we have in Australia that can help? So our universities, our technology companies, our mining companies, our agricultural companies. How do we get them all engaged where we think they will resonate in terms of what's happening there? Because remember, from an Australian viewpoint, we've had a very open economy now for 40 years. So our companies compete globally across the globe. They compete successfully, whether it's in the US, in Europe, in Japan or what have you. They really are globally competitive. And as well as that, we've got this pension fund industry in Australia that's one of the largest in the world. Even though we're only a small country, our pension fund industry is one of the top 5 pension funds in the world. And the sorts of infrastructure, the sorts of property development, the sorts of things that the urbanisation, the industrialisation of the region, our fund managers like that sort of category of investment globally. So again, it's a question of saying, look what's happening in the region, look at these opportunities, you should be investing in them. So the corporate sector and then the institutional fund management sector, both of them should be interested in terms of what's happening here.
Yeah, how about the ambassador? I would like to ask you one question, because as what Mr. Moore said today, you met Thai officials. They might talk about digital economy, they might talk about different sectors. What is the Thai officials' demand here for the sector? Which sector they think is the best to invest or cooperate together?
Sure. If I can just go back a step, I think from a government level, actually, both Thailand and Australia work very closely together in the international trading system, particularly the World Trade Organization and through the CANS group of agricultural exporting countries. We're both agricultural exporting countries. And so that's a really important, as trade exposed economies, as both Australia and Thailand are, that how we work together internationally and preserving that open liberal trading system is actually one way at a government to government level that we continue to work together so that we can jointly set the conditions for business, investors, trade to continue free of impediments. So I just wanted to say that that's a really strong area of cooperation between Australia and Thailand. In terms of the sectors, the 4 that Nicholas identified in this report are actually very aligned with, again, those that the Thai government talks with us about. So energy transition, green economy, skills and education. So a big focus on how does Thailand upskill for an increasing focus on AI, robotics, digitisation. Obviously, it's a super saturated market in that sense already, Thailand. So where is there some other skills that we can contribute to that, particularly as how that could help transform manufacturing. And some of our businesses that are already operating in the Eastern Economic Corridor have a lot of the skills in-house that they're upskilling Thais who are working with them and finding that really adds to their capability. The digital economy, Agrifood, and again, it's where the technology and digitisation intersects with what is a traditional sector in many ways, agriculture and the food industry. And so how can we increase productivity, reduce the impact on the environment, whether it's use of water, whether it's less use of fertiliser, etc. How can we share that? And again, it's where corporates can do this with each other. They're the ones who have the best capacity to work out what's needed for business, but government is also assisting. So, for example, Dairy Australia has had a tropical dairy expert come to Thailand every year since 2016 to work with those in the industry here about some of the sustainable ways of dairy farming in tropical environments that Australians have been working with. So agriculture and food is another key area where we can continue to work.
I think one Australia's expertise that we have to talk about in this interview is climate resilience, climate change solutions, because of course what we have seen in northern part of Thailand, in Chiang Mai or Chiang Rai, are facing flooding right now. So this is one of the area that Australia can help, right?
I think that's right.
Yeah, and we express our condolences for those who have been affected by the flooding in northern Thailand, which is truly shocking when you look at the images and the impact on livelihoods of local communities, agricultural communities, tourism sector as well. And unfortunately, it's a scourge of climate change that Australia only knows too well, having suffered some really significant flooding at all different parts of the country over the last several years. And so, yes, how can we work together, whether it's on water management, whether it's on nature-based solutions, so that in an urban environment, for example, there's more flood mitigation measures, and we're working with a project under the Mekong Australia Partnership with the Bangkok Metropolitan Administration, transforming the On Nut waste management facility into an urban parkland area. So again, how can we bring some nature-based solutions using Australian expertise? That's a project with Monash University.
And the Mekong Partnership has been going now for some years, hasn't it, Ambassador? With
Yes.
of substantial investment by Australia in the region, dealing with these issues, and particularly climate change, in terms of the challenge of climate change.
Yeah, and of course, how to expedite that solution there from the government side is very key, because we've seen this, facing this flooding situation every year, not just 1 year. One question to you, Mr. Moore. Of course, you've been in Thailand many times.
Yep.
You talk to Australia business in Thailand. You talk to Thai business in Australia too. I just want to understand, have you seen any concerns from those Australian business in Thailand, no matter it's about ease of doing business or another factor they think the government can solve immediately?
Well, one of the things when our Prime Minister asked us to put this report together, I went out and met with business leaders in Thailand and Australia, and indeed across the region, and we received submissions. We received over 200 submissions, and we spoke to over 750, almost 1,000 people. And universally coming back was a great spirit of optimism and positivism in terms of what can be done. Everyone recognised that the security relationship, the diplomatic relationship, the neighbourly relationship between our countries are very strong, but they also saw there was a great potential to do a lot more economically. And as we mentioned, when we told people our mission is two-way trade and investment, that really resonated well, because a lot of countries say, look, we want to increase our exports to you, we want to increase your investment in us, which we do as well, but also we want to do the opposite. It's as important for us in terms of our metrics of success. If we increase imports from Thailand into Australia, that's viewed by our government as successful as us increasing our exports to Thailand. And similarly, if we increase our investment in Thailand, that's viewed as being a very, very positive signal, as well as, of course, having the Thai investment in Australia, which is very substantial and growing, and we're very grateful and we're pleased that many Thai companies see Australia as a good investment destination.
So actually some business leaders, I talked to some business leaders in Thailand, they talk about, okay, it's the weak economic performance in Thailand during over this years, and how about the constant policy changes and constant changes about government right now. I'm sure I have to leave this question to the ambassador here. So how can you think, both governments here, how could we tighten the cooperation in between? Because of course you talk to Thai government too. Sometimes the leadership changes really change everything. So what do you think about it?
I think there's been quite some continuity in terms of the focus on trade and investment that the previous Setar government and the current government is now talking about and looking at. So there's a lot of opportunities. I think Australian businesses come to the region really with their eyes wide open. As you said earlier, every country in the region has a very different political economy, so with the political circumstances, how the government works there. As doing business anywhere, we need to look at the culture, how things happen there. There are some specific potential impediments from time to time, and that's where government can definitely step in and help. So if there's a regulatory barrier or some issue where it's hard for an Australian business to figure out how to get started here, we've found both the Board of Investment and the Eastern Economic Corridor Office, for example, very responsive anytime we've raised any issue with them. So there's a real can-do attitude amongst, strongly, I think, across the Thai system, and they see, as Nicholas said, the real benefit of two-way trade and investment, and really keen to be working with us with our businesses to make it possible for our businesses to work together. So yes, there can be impediments. Yes, doing business here is not the same as doing it in another state in Australia, which can carry its own challenges from time to time. But businesses come prepared to take some of those risks because the potential is so great.
And very much a long-term story, of course. You know, this is, there are short-term, well, there's always short-term hiccups, but I think everybody is very much on board that this is a long-term story. You know, the strategy was, the Prime Minister set for us was out to 2040. So the whole focus is, okay, where are we going to be as a neighbourhood, where are we going to be as Australia and Thailand and the rest of the region in 2040? And we think it's going to be a very good picture. It's going to be a very rosy picture in terms of how the region grows and develops and how Australia grows and develops as well.
So for business and investment and trade, of course, we always talk about long-term strategy.
Exactly.
Long-term
you need to have that, absolutely right.
Long-term collective collaboration between two countries. One of, in your report, one of the focus points that I didn't find is our neighboring country, Myanmar here. Of course, it's, right now it's going through many sensitive steps here, those violence inside. So I just want to understand the two-way trade. We talk about that today all along. How about the two-way approaches with Myanmar here?
It was just deliberately excluded from detailed reference in this report because, as you say, the situation is so devastating, really, inside Myanmar. The violence that's being perpetrated by the regime against its own people and the conflict that has ensued, the displacement of people, the devastation not just of livelihoods but of the economy more broadly. So we haven't focused on it as really a trade and investment opportunity. I think there was potential, but at the moment it's really been devastated by the military action and by the conflict that's there. So we're keen to see and to support ASEAN in its leadership role, and we know that Thailand has a very long border and a very particular set of interests in relation to Myanmar. So the sort of role that ASEAN, Thailand, in conjunction with Laos as the chair of ASEAN this year, is taking to try and reduce the violence and to think about some form of change to the circumstances there. That's really the first step.
Yeah. To your point, actually, our reporter also on the ground these few months to see if there's any opportunity for business, but right now it's not that possible because of all the violence and devastating situation you talk about. Another point, I think, before we end this interview, of course, right now you're on the way to Laos, of course. What's your anticipation to see this visit right now in Thailand, and you will be in Laos in a few days? What's that anticipation?
Well, our Prime Minister, of course, will be going there as part of the leaders' meeting, and he will be he'll have a broad agenda, but part of his agenda will be furthering this strategy. This is he and the Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, and Anthony Albanese, our Prime Minister. They're personally very committed to this. So we're very encouraged that when they talk to the leaders of ASEAN, they'll be talking about not just the security issues and all the other complex issues they deal with ASEAN, but most importantly about two-way trade and investment and how Australia is a partner for the region, and it's an enthusiastic partner, and it's a partner where the government is stepping up and using its own balance sheet, its own funds to actually further the greater economic development of the region and Australia together.
Right, and of course, good luck to your trip to Laos to meet those Laos businessmen there, because of course Laos is right now strengthening their, opening their economy to different countries. And so good luck to you here.
Okay,
thank you for your time. Both Australia's Special Envoy for Southeast Asia, Nicholas Moore here, and the Ambassador of Australia to Thailand, Angela MacDonald. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. More news to come.